record button here, and you can go ahead and get started.
All right. Yeah, so as Nick said, my name is Dr. Schroer. I'm the principal here at Hopkins Elementary School. During this time, you might hear, you might see me look over at my door. You know, it's a school day. We're fully in session. I hopped out of the cafeteria to be able to come into here and talk with you guys. Ben, Steve, can you guys hear me all right? Are you guys good to go? Just making sure y'all are good to go.
Sounds great, buddy.
All right. So, you know, just feel free to interject whenever. You know, I kind of just want this to kind of just be a discussion. I mean, it's cozy. There's just four of us in here, so any kind of questions or any kind of anything, I'm here. So I'll just kind of get with it. So digital leadership attitudes and implication for K-12 education. This is what I did my my dissertation on, and you know, I graduated from the University of the Cumberlands last about a month ago, and it was a journey unlike any other, and one that I learned so much about, you know, to improve my leadership skills as a third-year principal now. You know, and it was an amazing experience. I couldn't have been more tickled to do it through there. So I kind of give you guys the overview. What we have here is I performed a descriptive analysis that kind of examined the extent that the different pandemic categories had on sophisticated technology attitudes from school administrators and teachers. So, and when we talk about pandemic categories, I was able to kind of divvy up survey responses from the pre-pandemic era, basically the 18, 19 school year, where there was no pandemic at all. And then we made a pandemic era during the 1920 school year, which we considered the onset pandemic era. And then the 2021 school year, which we'd consider to kind of be the endemic era. I think it's sort of evolving into a, there's probably a fourth phase that we're in right now, you know, but during I guess what kind of categorizes the different eras is, right, the pre-pandemic, we didn't even know what COVID was, right? It was something going on at the beginning of the 2019 school year, you know. It finally made it over to us at basically this time 2 years ago, and then it's caused those shutdowns. So the 1920 school year was the onset, where you know, we had school closures. You know, at least at my school, we had to disperse packets. We were Lysoling packets, and I kind of talk about that in my dissertation, where we're wiping down everything. We don't know what we should be doing. We're wearing gloves for everything that we're touching from student materials. We're not doing anything kind of sophisticated at all with our technology use. It was just bare minimum. Let's finish this school year out from March 2020 to May 2020. So and then of course what we consider the endemic era would be the, you know, once schools reopened in August, and then to now, you know, that looks different. It depends on where you are, at least in the Commonwealth or in the country, where you have, you know, in the big cities, last school year, I think some of the bigger cities didn't return to in-person learning until March or April. Whereas, you know, my district and a lot of the ones over here in South Central, Southeast Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, I know they were in person since August, essentially, unless we were mandated for a shutdown. So it looks different, but there were a few recurring themes that kind of happened during the whole pandemic phase, and leadership and digital leadership. It looked different depending on the school you're at. So we wanted to quantitatively analyze what digital leadership kind of looked like, and to do that, we used Project Tomorrow's Speak Up survey. And this is my shameless plug for my friends at Project Tomorrow. They're a nonprofit, and I'm going to see if I could just drag their little website over here. They're a nonprofit organization that really, they advocate for schools and for leaders and students nationally. You at least I got to meet these guys because they came to my school and they did a few grants, and they were able to furnish my third and fourth grade students with tablets, back in 2017, 18, I even think maybe even back in 16, before we were even close to having one-to-one devices. That was such a huge help for our kids. And that it ultimately proved so helpful when the pandemic happened, because it wasn't until just this year that my, first, second kindergarten students got one-to-one devices, and I know that's different in different districts, but if you think about it, it's hard to implement digital learning when we don't have one-to-one device. We don't have, different, if it's Wi-Fi or routers, there's so many different things that go into it in trying to teach during a pandemic, trying to lead digitally during a pandemic. So Project Tomorrow, they really helped me out just throughout my career and also through this pandemic and helping out with this dissertation that I just completed. So if you ever have time, go to tomorrow.org. They're a super organization. That's Dr. Evans. She's very helpful. Every year they have what's called the Speak Up Survey. Let me see where I can find it. But the Speak Up Survey, there you go, Speak Up Survey data findings. They survey, principals, teachers, district admin, students, and they ask different things about, what does technology in the classroom look like? So very quick shout out to my friends at Project Tomorrow. Nick, if you want to put tomorrow.org into our chat, just so we have that for future reference. I just want to give those guys give their props. But we use Project Tomorrow Speak Up Survey, and they're mostly known for their Speak Up Survey, but they do a bunch of other advocacy, and we were able to measure their frequency of responses to the Speak Up Survey response provided. So, and this first slide, it's an overview slide. It's almost like the too long TLDR, too long didn't read. Here's pretty much what you need to know out of this if you don't hear anything. The significant findings within the study include finding common ground between school admin and teachers when we evaluate the quality of digital content, tools, or resources. So there were three big priorities that kind of reflect their sophisticated technology attitudes when we evaluate digital content, tools, and resources. And throughout the three pandemic phases that we talk about, the educators, they're looking for technology that adjusts to multiple reading levels, that can be differentiated, and it's, it can be morphed for the different students' needs. It's aligned to local or state curriculum. If you guys are in here, you're probably some form of administrator, and you want things that are aligned to your standards. So the teachers are looking at, the admin are looking at that, and then of course provides current content that's frequently revised or updated. So we want current, interesting content. So I think those are the three big findings that I've had, is if admin and teachers, they're more on the same page than they're not, that if you can find things that are differentiated, aligned to standards, and that provide updated current content, then that's really what we're looking for. So that was kind of the major finding I had there. And if there's a way for that digital leader to, I guess, pioneer or usher in these new technologies or resources or programs, that's kind of what we're looking at. So, this information can be used by the admin and teachers to help better prepare for educating during this endemic era of the COVID-19 pandemic, because we're sitting in here, and I mean, as we speak, my school's in session, but the other, let's see, 9 or 10 elementary schools in my county, they're all off right now for NTI or for sickness, or so it's just interesting to see where everybody's at. And I don't think there's a one size fits all approach to digital leadership during this pandemic. Going back into the background and the problem statement, there really isn't a handbook on how to be an effective digital learner. I know there's a few things that we've tried to do, but it's not a cookie cutter approach, and it's interesting to see what other schools tried out. And I think even I was in Ben's, it was like a principal cadre to kind of see. I think hearing from the experiences from that, it was different throughout Kentucky, and I'm sure it was different throughout the the state. So it's important for us to know, what should we be focusing on? What kind of professional development? What are the students' needs? What do the teachers need to work on? What are the teachers' needs? And we faced, virtual school. We faced hybrid instruction, half and half days, and of course full on in-person learning. And that changed even through into this school year, where at first we were required to have masks. Now there's no masks. So and it's just interesting to see what legislation, what kind of new challenges we're going to face going forward. And I feel much better prepared now that my entire school's one-to-one, except for our preschool. But I don't know how effective a one-to-one device is for even preschool, kindergarten, or first grade. But we are ready to go from one where we're rolling out if we ever have to go virtual again. So the purpose was to find if there's a potentially positive effect between public school administrators' influence on teachers' attitudes and their admin's aptitude. So, when I started my dissertation about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was trying to figure out, okay, it was in the midst of my first year being a principal. And I haven't had a normal school year being a principal. My first year was the 1920 year. And in March 2020, we shut down because of COVID. But I did feel uniquely positioned to help lead my school there because I had just been in the classroom, just using those resources, just knowing, okay, if this is the way things are going to be for the next year and a half, 2 years, or however long, I feel good, showing my teachers, hey, this is what you're going to want to use. You're going to want to use Google Classroom. That's just the platform we have here at our school. And we kind of had to be intentional and figure out, okay, this is the way we're going to approach this. This is going to be the platform that we're going to use to meet with our kids and our parents. We're going to have Google Meets. We want it in our Google Docs. We want Google Slides. We just thought it was kind of okay, let's make this as easy as we can for the parents and guardians to log in, their little kids, to as easy as we can for the kids. So I felt comfortable, being I was 26 or so when I was my first year when COVID was happening. And, that was my wheelhouse. I felt comfortable with it. I felt comfortable teaching my more veteran teachers, right? A lot of them would say, what does he know about teaching? He hadn't even been in the classroom that much. But I did feel very good showing them how to, work computers, how to troubleshoot. And that was at the beginning. That was probably one of our biggest problems, was learning how to get everybody online and to push content online and to have a digital classroom. That was probably the biggest need we had there. So I look at that as an opportunity for me to kind of show my digital leadership when the time happened. So it was good for us to, in a way, at least, to be able to kind of stretch ourselves and kind of see, okay, how can we grow from this COVID pandemic? Yes, everybody thought the world's ending, and what can we do to still serve students? So that was important to me, to make sure that we were getting that done, because I know, a couple neighborhood schools, their principals and their school administrators, they were kind of saying, okay, well, I don't really know we don't use Google. We stick with Word, we stick with whatever. The teachers can go teach themselves. And I thought that was the wrong approach, because I think to be an effective digital leader, you got to be able to walk the walk, talk the talk, and tell them, hey, you got to be able to show the teacher, you got to be that resource to the teachers or to the students and say, hey, this is what we need. These are my expectations. It shouldn't be the teachers teaching each other. Of course, you want that collaboration, but I do think there needs to be some leadership from the top that says, hey, this is the way we're going to handle things. So that was kind of the scope or the lens that I used when approaching this whole thing. So I kind of talked about that need for thoughtful and intentional direction, new ways to increase student engagement, and leadership. It's a hard thing to quantify people, you can't really say what leadership is, but people know when they see it. So it's important that we know the best way to show digital leadership and to be a digital leader, you know, when we're remote and as well as when we're in person, and to be just a leader. So let's see, moving on, significance kind of talks more about that kind of stuff. Just data, if it'll prove, you know, helpful for, I think there's going to have to be an aspect of digital leadership or some sort of ways to evaluate maybe teachers that might be, we might have virtual teachers going forward, right? I think last year when I was doing observations and walkthroughs, and we were shut down for portions of the year. We were in person, but we were thankfully, I ended up being able to devote one teacher per grade level on them being remote teachers. And that was a whole nother can of worms that, you know, I wasn't ready for. I'd never been taught how to evaluate a teacher when they're just talking to a computer like this, right? And they're trying to teach students. You know, I can go into a classroom and I can do an observation, and that's an hour. And I say, okay, I can tell these kids are engaged. I can tell these kids are getting it. I can tell this kid's not engaged. I can tell this teacher's really putting it in. It wasn't until last year where I did some walkthroughs or I did some observations of, okay, I've got this kindergarten teacher and she is, you know, lighting up these kids' world, and they're not even in the same room, you know, and they're using whiteboards and markers and they're engaged and it looks beautiful. Then I've got like another teacher over here in third grade and she's just going through the motions, she's clicking, this is how we do things. And I think that was probably one of the big findings that I had was, okay, what does digital leadership, how would a digital leader help that teacher? How would they help them reach those kids? Because they're still our kids. They're going to come back, you know, and they came back this year. They're going to come back this year. And those kindergartners, they're flying, they're in first grade. But some of those third graders that were with that virtual teacher that wasn't really getting it, you know, I felt like it was my duty to help that teacher out and to make sure those kids get caught back up, because we knew, at least at our district, that we probably wouldn't have that virtual option again. I mean, not as easily to get into, I guess, this year as we did last year. So it was important for us to know what good teaching is digitally was, and I think that's important for maybe for higher ed to understand is, okay, how do we educate and care for students digitally, and how do we teach teachers? So some of the research questions that I use to kind of guide my dissertation. My first research question: does a pandemic phase impact positive responses to sophisticated technology attitudes among school admin as measured by the Speak Up survey? And then conversely, does it affect the teachers' attitudes? And, you know, I thought that different things would become more important as the pandemic went on. But really, if you kind of go back up to my overview, it's those three things. It's differentiation, it's alignment to standards, and it's if it's current. And I thought that would change during the pandemic phases, but no, those three things remain constant for teachers and school administration. Those three things. And I guess I need to go back into it. The Speak Up survey, it's a national survey, and I use national data from all 50 states. I think if I might have to jump around in here. I think I had something like 650,000 responses. They answered 18 Likert type scale sub questions. Let's see, yeah, we had 280,000 school administrator teacher responses in the 18-19 school year. And then as COVID went on, we had 152 responses, 152,000, 54,000 responses. So I don't know, I'm just kind of doing some rough math. Just call it, you know, 450,000 maybe, maybe a little less. But that was a huge sample size that I was able to use thanks to Project Tomorrow. And those three common themes are what came out of all those teacher and admin responses. We want current content, we want differentiation, we want aligned to our local standards. So those are the three things that school admin and teachers across America really felt were important. And then the things that we felt were not important, those did end up changing over the pandemic. So we thought that a few things were important in the pre-pandemic year, in the 1819 school year. We thought, oh well, this isn't really important. Like, does it need to be in multiple languages? That was probably the least important thing that teachers and school administrators thought. They're like, what's it matter if it's in multiple languages? Well, fast forward to the 2020-21 school year. Well, actually having resources that are in multiple languages is actually pretty important, because they how do you reach those ESL students that they don't have their teacher there? So it's important to kind of look at that stuff. But I know I'm probably running low on time. Nick, am I until 1:40? Is that what it is? Let me double check here.
Yes, it is 1:40.
Okay, I'm gonna speed this thing up. But we go back into pre-pandemic learning, and just kind of looking at, okay, the pre-pandemic 1819 school year, it was innovative to be using like a flipped classroom approach, and that ultimately kind of became the norm as the pandemic started. So if you were doing a flipped classroom, big kudos to you in the 1819 school year, but that kind of became the expectation, right? Just the rapid growth of digital classrooms, being able to have resources quickly, readily available to students, the current and endemic learning, using new mediums like Screencastify, Zoom, Google Meets. These were all implemented and used with fidelity. And those were, I'd call them lifesavers, at least at my school, where, that was our medium to talk to students. Let's see, pre-pandemic learning. There we go, theoretical framework. I won't touch too much on that, but digital opportunities arose. School administrators, teachers, and students, they looked at new things due to the COVID pandemic. Esports became more of a thing. We had more of an itch for esports and virtual or augmented reality. So that was cool. An emphasis on coding and communication, and we had kids learning how to email each other, for better or for worse during class, and not. So we use book fairs, and we do like an online book fair, and maybe we were behind the times, but looking at different kinds of opportunities to make things digital was super important. Kind of talking about the research paradigm, we use Project Tomorrow's. They were the backbone of the study, 24-year history of impacting education. Let's see, the research design, there we go. We had 487,000 responses over the 3 school years that gave us. And of course, the response rate, went down as the pandemic ensued. I know administrators, teachers, they got super busy trying to just make ends meet, try to make sure everything's fine. So it was really good to have such a large response rate in 1819, and it wasn't. It was about half each year, I guess. From about 250,000 to 125,000 to about 100 or so combined. We use the sampling procedures, and everybody agreed to everything. They answered the 18 Likert scale subtype questions, and I'll go ahead and just pull my dissertation over, and I kind of give you guys an idea of what it looked like. I'll just scroll down to the bottom. So this is from Project Tomorrow's Speak Up survey from this year. How would you rate the importance of the following characteristics when evaluating the quality of digital content, tools, or resources? So the school administrators, the teachers and the administrators, they would just answer that, and we use that data and this number from the last 3 school years to kind of use to do our quantitative analysis. Statistical tests, we use a descriptive analysis. Let's see, I know I'm running low on time, and I got my assistant principal calling me on my work phone. So I'm sure something's happening, but it's all good. Let's see. Analysis of research question. I think that's the biggest thing. The least important traits, I kind of talked about that. It was, they didn't feel that they felt as it changed, the change from, the three things, local or state, the three good things that all educators wanted, right? That they're looking for: local or state curriculum, adjusted multiple rating levels, current content. And then the things that changed over the years were is it available in multiple languages? Does it need to be from a content expert organization? No, not necessarily. So that kind of changed as the pandemic went on. And then let's see. One of the findings that I found most interesting was that teachers felt that the overall percentage of it was not important for content to be offered for professional development as the COVID-19. Like, they felt like they didn't need PD, but the school administrators felt like all we need is PD, and that's all we did. And that was shown nationally, where teachers felt like, we don't need PD. But the school admin were like, no, you guys need PD. You guys need some guidance on how we're going to do that. So I found that to be a very interesting data trend from my research. Let's see. They felt like it was not important, the professional development. And I just thought that was so bizarre to me. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe they just, I kind of attribute it to, that's just one more thing we got to do. And I think maybe, that might be what it is. So let's see. I know we're running low on time. Talk about limitations. It was, COVID, of course, was probably the biggest limitation. Implications for future study. I'd love to see, what the Speak Up survey data would say from this school year. Just kind of what does a normal school year look like? I don't know. I have normal is an opinion, but to some elementary school students, like at my school, this is the normal. They're kindergarten, first and second grade students in the 21-22 school year have all only known school to be a place where there are masks and social distance practicing in place. So, we're raising a generation of kids who this is the new normal, and we need to have digital leadership, and we need to have online tools for them to go. So there's a summary page. I appreciate you guys listening in. Any questions, I guess, if you guys, I know we're running low on time. I probably should have had more time for questions.
Yeah, one of the things I was wondering as you were talking there was, where were those areas where teachers and administrators had differences, but you addressed that right there at the end. So yeah, appreciate that for sure. It's kind of interesting.
Great. And my email, it's hubert.schroer. If you ever want to talk about this or whatever, hubert.schroer@somerset.kwestschools.us. And I'm here to serve, and I don't mind sharing this. I'll probably put a link to this on that EdCamp grid so that you guys can have access to it.
All right. Thank you very much, Hubert. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. We appreciate it.